Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and in celebration of the release of the new Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we are going to go through and rank our best Quentin Tarantino films from 10 to 1. That's right, I said 10, and I will explain why in a minute. But before we dive into that conversation, do me a favor and go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, because every single time that we post a cool video like this on CinemaBlend's YouTube page, we want you guys to come and watch it immediately. The reason why I am starting with number 10 is because I am one of those people that considers Kill Bill to be two separate films. Yes, I understand that Quentin Tarantino is calling Once Upon a Time in Hollywood his 9th film, and that he largely views Kill Bill to be one movie. He wrote it that way, he filmed it that way, but he also agreed to release it as two separate films almost a year apart, so I am going to treat them as two movies, especially because I put Kill Bill Volume 2 as number 10 on my list. I am so shocked that Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 are two parts of the same movie because they feel like completely different films in tone, and I find Volume 2 to be more sluggish, somber, depressing, not nearly as thrilling as Volume 1 is. I'm going to rank that one much higher on my list, but the worst film, I put in quotes, worst film by Quentin Tarantino is Kill Bill Volume 2. It goes without saying that all 10 of the films, to me, are outstanding, and a handful of them actually qualify as masterpieces, so even though I'm putting Kill Bill Volume 2 at number 10, still an excellent film by most people's standards. It's just, when compared against the other Tarantino films, I gotta put it at 10. For number 9, and this is where I'm going to start to make some people angry and probably shocked, I'm putting Inglorious Basterds. The later efforts by Quentin tend to tip a little bit too far into exaggerated, cartoonish, comical violence. And that would include Inglorious Basterds, which is a war film, as depicted by Quentin Tarantino, starring Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz, that basically goes to show an alternate version of history where a band of American soldiers succeed in killing Hitler. It's fun. It's a unique exercise that goes in a lot of different places that people probably don't expect, and it does have some examples of some amazing dialogue by Tarantino, most specifically the opening sequence with the milk farmers and Christoph Waltz's really disturbing Nazi. But I just feel like halfway through this film, it kind of goes off the rails, and while a lot of people really love when Tarantino goes in that direction, that's kind of when I tend to check out with him, and so I'm putting Basterds at number 9. Along the same line of thought is why I put Django Unchained at number 8. It's an interesting exercise, but a really disturbing one that really pushes people's buttons in terms of the violence and approach to both racism and slavery. While I definitely appreciate how Quentin Tarantino was trying to do an ode to both spaghetti westerns, but also those classic Django films that came out throughout the 60s and 70s, by the time that Jamie Foxx's Django just goes ham on the slave plantation at the end of the film and it becomes overly violent. That's not the type of Tarantino films that personally I appreciate, and so the last two efforts of Django and Inglorious Basterds are, again, not my favorites, and so they rank 8 and 9 respectively on this list. My choice for number 7 is Jackie Brown, a title that a lot of people would probably put at the very bottom of the list, but I really do like what Tarantino was trying to do here by adapting Elmore Leonard's Rum Punch novel. This is an impossible film because it had to come after Pulp Fiction, and nothing was ever going to be as good as Fiction was, but Tarantino decided to go for a leisurely, sort of meandering thriller that spent a lot of time with some of the criminal elements that he introduced in Pulp Fiction, taking a very different approach to the material, checking in with Sam Jackson, of course, a character actor that he's worked with multiple times before, and giving Pam Grier a pedestal on which she should have been this entire time, and just leaving the spotlight on her and letting her do everything that she does really well. Jackie Brown is the type of movie that has aged really well, and if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and check it out. The Hateful Eight lands at number 6, and this is just a fascinating display of Tarantino and his dialogue. He creates some amazing characters, vicious characters, evil characters, people who we just cannot trust, and puts them all together in one room so they can bounce off of each other. It's an experiment, And it's one of those ones where when you don't know where it's going, it's a better film because you're always sort of questioning the motivations of each character, and you're enjoying these amazing performances by actors like Kurt Russell, Sam Jackson, Michael Madsen popping up in a brief role, Channing Tatum surprising people with an odd cameo, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Hateful Eight loses a little bit of its steam on a rewatch because you do sort of understand where it's going, but there's so much delicious Tarantino dialogue in it that I appreciate it a lot and put it above the films that I've ranked up to this point, so it lands at number 6 for me. Time for the top 5, and at number 5, I'm going to put Tarantino's contribution to the Grindhouse experiment, and it's called Death Proof. Now, the Grindhouse experiment was Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez trying to bring back the drive-in experience of their youth. So they each took genre exercises, built them out into feature-length films, and then put them together for a double feature that you could buy one ticket to and come and watch with some bogus trailers stitched in between them. Tarantino's Death Proof is this brilliantly stripped down, hyper-violent, scary experience between a handful of women and a stuntman who's a true psychopath. And it's how they basically turn his game back on them, because they tend to be a couple of badasses who are not necessarily terrified by stuntman Mike. But it's Tarantino really celebrating the genre of, the exploitation genre, but also showing what a really strong director he is by giving you this riveting car chase scene that lasts for almost the last 45 minutes to an hour of Death Proof. It's essentially one long car chase, and really just showing how much command he has over cameras and visual, and how nail-biting he can make a bare-bones story of this psychopath who's closing on these girls and then them fighting back. You're probably already mad that I split Kill Bill into 2 films and ranked Volume 2 number 10, but maybe you'll forgive me because I'm putting Kill Bill Volume 1 at number 4 on my list. The first half of Kill Bill Volume 1 is a breath of fresh air. Uma Thurman is unbelievable as the bride, who's trying to work her way through all of the people who have wronged her on her list. And it's just imaginative and fresh and energetic, and Tarantino is ripping off the Asian films that he adored as a film student growing up. It has some amazing sequences. The fight in the House of Blue Leaves is a breathtaking fight sequence where the bride mows through an army of people who are trying to take her down. It has delicious Tarantino dialogue, and Kill Bill Volume 1 leaves on a cliffhanger so that you absolutely cannot wait to see where the story goes. Now, unfortunately for me, Kill Bill Volume 2 is a step backwards. It loses a lot of energy, it loses a lot of its creativity, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't celebrate Kill Bill Volume 1, because for Uma Thurman alone, it is one of the reasons why I love Tarantino and his films. I'm putting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at number 3 on this list because it is a masterpiece. To me, it's the best film that Quentin Tarantino has done since Pulp Fiction, and it's the type of movie that he could only make now at this point in his career. It is a reflection on the entertainment industry and the ways that storytellers are shaped by Hollywood and the way the storytellers shape Hollywood themselves. He recreates 1969 beautifully by following a fading character actor played by Leonardo DiCaprio and the stuntman who keeps him company played by Brad Pitt. They comment not only on the film industry, but how the counterculture is shifting dynamics in Los Angeles at the time, and the hippies are moving in as part of the new wave of people taking over Los Angeles. But there's also this dark specter of the Charles Manson murders and the presence of Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie, that casts a spell over the entire film. It's long, and it's Tarantino sort of spending a lot of time meandering through neighborhoods and passageways, which he adores, but I wouldn't cut a single minute out of this film. I think people who love Tarantino and the way that he tells stories are really going to dial into Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It is instantly a top 3 movie for me in his filmography. The problem with the top 2 Tarantino films is that they are both masterpieces, and the minute he delivered them, it would be impossible for any of his other films to sort of top them. So you know that I have to have Reservoir Dogs at number 2. Quentin Tarantino's debut was an explosion on the film scene, showing off a knack for dialogue and performance that people had not seen before. Telling the story almost in reverse of a diamond heist gone wrong, Tarantino introduces us to some colorful characters who actually have names named after colors, and puts a big whodunit in the middle of it as this team tries to decipher how they were betrayed and whether they have a mole inside of them. It's almost a one-act play, taking place largely in a warehouse following the heist, and Tarantino used this as a calling card to announce himself as a bold and brilliant storyteller that the industry had to pay attention to. It's amazing that, years later, we're still hanging on his every word and anticipating each film that he delivers every time they sort of reach theaters. Which means, obviously, my number one pick for the best film of Quentin Tarantino has to be Pulp Fiction. And it's unfortunate that it comes so early in Tarantino's career because he was never going to top it, as hard as he tried. And I think somewhere along the way, Tarantino sort of realized that he was never going to top Pulp Fiction, so he stopped trying. Pulp Fiction isn't just the best Tarantino film, it's one of the best films of all time. It's just such a fantastic, completely unexpected, original, fresh, unique film. The way that it breaks traditional structure and follows its story all over the place, the way that it allows you to spend time with the types of characters that you rarely see on screen before, fascinating killers, mesmerizing drug addicts, plunges us into an underworld that constantly shocks and surprises us. It has exactly the type of brilliant dialogue that attracts us back to Quentin Tarantino's films and features a showcase of incredible performances from the likes of John Travolta, Bruce Willis, and obviously Samuel L. Jackson playing a philosophical hitman who makes us realize that we probably relate to him a lot more than we should. Quentin Tarantino can claim that he has a full-blown masterpiece on his resume in Pulp Fiction, and while the rest of the movies on this list will never quite be as good as that, no other movie has really have a chance of being as good as Pulp Fiction. It is one of the best movies of all time. I can all but guarantee that you guys do not agree with my list, so I want to hear from you. Head down to the comment section and rank the Tarantino films in the way that you would put them. You have to have Pulp Fiction at number 1, but I kind of want to know what your 2 through, I'll say 10. 2 through 10. What are they going to be? And while you're down there in the comment section, do me a favor and hit subscribe and turn on new notifications. We are posting videos like this on CinemaBlend's YouTube page all the time, and we definitely don't want you guys to miss a single one of them.